What happens when the pressure doesn't break you instantly but slowly pushes you to your absolute limit? Because that's exactly what this next episode looks like it's going to explore. And after everything we saw in the previous episode with addiction, emotional breakdowns, and characters barely holding it together, it feels like the situation inside the pit is only about to get worse, not better. And now with the release of the episode 13 trailer, it's clear that the tension is reaching a boiling point where every single character is on edge, exhausted, and dangerously close to snapping. So, with that being said, let's break down everything that we saw, what it all means, and what could happen next. Here is the Pit Season 2 Episode 13 trailer explained. And just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. So, right from the start of the trailer, we get a sense of time, with Dana pointing out that it's already 7:15, which immediately tells us that the episode is going to continue in real time, just like the others. But what's interesting is that even though it's early in the hour, it already feels like the characters have been through an entire day's worth of stress. And visually, we see Juke being wheeled back, which suggests that he's just come out of a scan. And this moment is extremely important because everything about Dr. Robbie's behavior seems to be connected to Juke, because instead of stepping away like he was told he could, he's still there, still holding on.
And still waiting, and that tells you everything you need to know about his state of mind, because this isn't just about work anymore. This is personal, and the fact that he has his hands over his ears and looks completely overwhelmed shows that he's reaching a breaking point, because deep down, he knows that whatever those results are, they could change everything, and that fear is something he can't escape from. And when he says that he just has a few more loose ends to tie up, it almost feels like he's lying to himself, because Dana immediately points out that there are far more problems than he's willing to admit, and her attempt to make a joke about it shows that she's trying to keep things light, but at the same time, you can tell that she knows things are getting out of control. And as all of this is happening, we see new patients coming in, Orlando still in a critical situation, and the chaos of the hospital continuing, which reinforces the idea that no matter how much they're dealing with personally, the job doesn't stop, and that constant pressure is what's pushing everyone closer to their limit. And then we get one of the most interesting moments in the trailer, where Robbie speaks to Noelle and asks her if she wants to come with him. And on the surface, it sounds like a joke, like he's just being casual. But when you really look at it, it feels like something much deeper, because Robbie is someone who struggles with
connection, someone who doesn't really have anyone in his life. And this could actually be his way of reaching out, of asking for something real, but masking it behind humor because he doesn't know how to express it properly. And Noelle's response shows that she doesn't take it seriously, but at the same time, it leaves this lingering feeling that Robbie might actually need someone right now more than ever, especially with everything that's happening around him. And speaking of pressure, we then shift focus to Dr. Langdon, who is clearly not in a good place, sitting alone and questioning whether he even belongs there anymore. And this moment feels incredibly important because after everything he's been through with his addiction and the way people are starting to look at him differently, it's clear that he's struggling internally. And when Mel tries to reassure him, it shows that she's now stepping into the role that he once had for her, supporting him when he needs it the most. But even with that support, Langdon's doubt doesn't go away, because in his mind, it's not about whether he's ready, it's about whether Robbie will ever trust him again. And that lack of trust could be the very thing that pushes him back into a dangerous place. And then we see Robbie again, but this time something has changed.
Because when he slams his cup down in frustration, it's a moment that feels completely out of character, because he's always been someone who keeps things controlled. But now, that control is slipping, and the most likely reason for that is Juke's condition. Because if those results have come back bad, then it would explain why Robbie is reacting so emotionally, and why he's starting to lose his grip. And Dana's reaction to this moment shows that she knows something is wrong, and it feels like this is the beginning of something bigger, something that's going to explode as the episode continues. And from that moment on, the trailer really starts to build towards something much bigger, because what we're seeing isn't just stress from work anymore, it's personal tension between the staff that's about to explode. And that becomes even more clear when we see Robbie and Dana's interaction take a much more serious turn. Because when Dana tells him that he needs a break, it feels like she's genuinely concerned about him. But Robbie's response shows the exact opposite mindset, because instead of stepping back, he doubles down and says that
he has too much to do, and this is where his character really starts to shift, because it's no longer about being a leader, it's about control and the fear of losing that control, especially with Dr. Al-Hashimi now stepping in and trying to change how things are run. And you can tell that Robbie doesn't trust her at all, not just because she's new, but because she's challenging the way he's always done things. And for someone like Robbie, who sees the emergency room as the one stable part of his life, that's a threat he's not ready to accept. And on top of that, he brings up Langdon, questioning whether he might relapse, which shows that his trust in his own team is starting to break down. And when you combine all of that together, it creates this picture of a man who is completely overwhelmed but refuses to admit it. And that's usually when things start to fall apart. And at the same time, we see Langdon struggling in his own way, because the focus on his wedding ring feels very intentional, almost like a reminder of what he nearly lost. And that could be the one thing keeping him grounded. But with the pressure building and the lack of trust from Robbie, it feels like he's walking a very thin line, and it wouldn't be surprising if something pushes him over the edge in this episode. And then we have Dr. Santos, who also looks like she's heading in a darker direction, because every time we see her, she looks more stressed, more frustrated, and more likely to make a decision she might regret. And with everything that's been building up for her, it feels like she could be the next character to snap, unless someone like Whitaker steps in and brings her back, especially since we've seen that they actually have some kind of connection. And all of these individual struggles are happening at the same time, which makes it feel like the entire system is about to collapse from the inside. And then, as the trailer reaches its final moments, everything starts to come together, because we see quick shots of everyone. Robbie looking like he's completely drained, Dana looking concerned, Santos overwhelmed, and even the hospital itself starting to return to normal with the systems coming back online. But what's interesting is that even though the external chaos might be settling down, the internal chaos between the characters is only getting worse. And that's what makes this episode feel like it's going to be more emotional than anything we've seen so far. And then we get to the final line of the trailer, the moment that changes everything, where Dana asks Robbie if there's anything else.
His response is simply, "Yeah, you." And the way he says it, the look on his face, it's not calm, it's not controlled, it's anger, real anger. And that's something we haven't really seen from him before. And it immediately tells you that whatever happens next between them is not going to be small, because Dana has always been someone he relied on, someone he trusted. But now, after what she did with the patient, that trust is broken. And when trust breaks in a place like this, where everything depends on teamwork, the consequences can be huge. And the way Dana reacts in that moment is going to be key, because she could either step back and internalize it, or she could push back and confront him. And if she does, then that confrontation could turn into something explosive, something that completely shifts the dynamic of the entire team. And when you look at everything together, it becomes clear that this next episode isn't just about patients or medical cases, it's about the people, the emotional toll, the cracks that are starting to show after everything they've been through. And personally, I think we're going to see at least one major breakdown, whether it's Robbie
completely losing control, Langdon being pushed to the edge, or Santos making a decision that changes everything. Because the way the show has been building, it feels like it's all leading to a moment where everything finally spills over. And that's what makes this episode so exciting, because it's not predictable anymore. Anything can happen, and the consequences are going to be massive. So there you have it, the full breakdown and predictions for the Pit Season 2 Episode 13 trailer. Let me know what you think is going to happen next. Do you think Robbie is finally going to lose it, or will someone step in before it's too late? And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.